Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news. I hope you're doing well. I hope my throat is going to make it through the show today. I'm a bit rusty, but look, somebody who will be talking a lot today is Ralph Rangnick. He's got his press conference coming up at 1:30. We'll be doing a live reaction to that. But first of all, we're going to be talking about Manchester United, obviously, and we're going to be talking about Ralph Rangnick feeling that he's out of time. His job is in danger anyway, as we know, not because he's going to get sacked, but because he probably will go in May. But he's also in fear of not having enough time to sort this around. And Andy Mitten's spoken about his disappointment at losing people like Michael Carrick and Kieran McKenna, and that's impacted on his ability to do his job. I find that fascinating. You know, he needs coaches who got another manager sacked to help him. It just shows you the mess of how Manchester United are run. But it exposes something that many of you were talking about a few days ago, that this is not a reset. Rangnick was not brought in to reset this club. He was brought in to put a plaster on the wound until May, which is basically what an interim is, which is why there's no stability, I suppose. We're also going to be talking about transfer news. David Ornstein's been talking, very good journalist, talking about our interest in Haaland and TCHOUMENI as well. TCHOUMENI's rather interesting. This is from David Ornstein. This is a very good source in the UK for transfers, and he's talking about Manchester United's interest in Haaland and TCHOUMENI. So we'll be talking about that as well. Lots to get into. But as you can see, we're sponsored by Manscaped. And I tell you what, some of these United players need to get a Manscaped sponsorship. You know, I'm sure Manscaped can do it. They're sponsoring the show today. Manscaped is the leader in men's below-the-waist grooming. They now help more than 4 million men worldwide looking on point in the areas it really matters. Basically, trim the grass to make your yard look bigger. It's male grooming. It's for your balls. 4 million men worldwide trust Manscaped. There's 17 men at Carrington that could do with one of these. Shave it and show some balls instead of being snakes. A new Anyway, what's so great about the Lawnmower 4.0? It's got a new multifunctional on and off switch, plus travel lock for people who like to travel. The ability to turn the LED light spotlights on and off when you need a more precise shave. You can do it in the dark, but why would you do it in the dark? Just use a light. It's sleek with a two-toned matte and gloss finish, even featuring a hot foil stamped Manscaped sign. Very fancy. And of course, its wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which can help battery length. It's very fancy as well. Alongside the new Lawnmower 4.0, you can get the Performance Package, where you'll get the Weed Whacker, the Crop Preserver, the Crop Reviver, very comfy boxer shorts, and a travel bag. And because Manscaped care about everyone that watches the United Stand, they're giving you a huge 20% off and free worldwide shipping through the link in the description. So what are you waiting for? Head over to Manscaped and get your balls groomed. Or your nose, because I like the Weed Whacker. I do it every week. You get to a certain age and the forest needs trimming. And it is like a forest up my nose. You'll all get there in the end, but that is fantastic. And what I really like about Manscaped is that the quality of the products. They feel good in the hand, and they're very sturdy and very reliable. I don't have any fears. So trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. And if you want to send some out, Manscaped, there's 17 United players who need to show some balls. Anyway, big shout out to Manscaped. 20% off, as I said. Link in the description. Let's get into the show. So a few stories to talk about. We'll start off with the transfer story, and then we'll talk about Ralph Rangnick's concerns. I haven't got COVID. I actually had my boost yesterday. I've probably had about 10 tests over the last 10 days. And where I went for Christmas, my niece had my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, my daughter, everybody seemed to have this cough and chesty cough, and I've obviously succumbed to it. So there we go. I think it's because I've been lying down and it's gone down there. But anyway, definitely not hungover. I haven't had a drink since New Year. Although I probably did the other day. Anyway, look, you're moving me. I'm going to do a Goldbridge video later on Mark Goldbridge. If you want lifestyle, you can get that there. We're talking football. Let's start with the transfer news. So, TCHOUMENI, Manchester United and Liverpool are interested in TCHOUMENI. This is coming from David Ornstein. If you don't know who TCHOUMENI is, he's had a few performances for France. He's a young player at Monaco. Many people are very excited about him. Chelsea were interested in him. We were sort of interested in him in the summer. Well, according to David Ornstein, Manchester United are interested in him. The thing about this for me that makes it not very exciting at all, and Abranar says the fact that Ralph Rangnick didn't get to bring his team and has to rely on Fletcher and others is why his ideas are not being stamped on the team. We're talking about that in a minute. Very, very good point. But they're talking about the summer with TCHOUMENI, and I've got to be honest, I've got no interest in the transfer summer. I don't know where you are. Maybe it excites you. It certainly doesn't excite me. I mean, we're in January. We are below Arsenal. We are below Spurs. We are not in the top 4. Why would I get excited about signing a player in the summer? I mean, I've got no interest in it. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant news. And where's David Ornstein getting this from? Because he's very reliable, so he must be getting that from a source who is close to the club or at the club. Why is David Ornstein being leaked information about summer midfield signings? Because they want you to think about the summer and get excited because they've messed up the January transfer window. That's my interpretation. Tchouaméni in the summer, why is that good? We'll probably be in the Europa League. Oh, great, we've got Tchouaméni in the summer. We won't have Pogba. We won't have Cavani. We probably have lost another 3 or 4 players as well. Why am I interested? Why is my football club interested in summer transfers when our midfield has lost 80% of its midfield battles out of 20 games? Like, we need to buy a midfielder now. A big club buys a midfielder now. If this was Chelsea or this was Manchester City and they were 6th or 7th in the league, Champions League, I mean, look what Abramovich did last year in January. He got rid of Lampard and he brought Tuchel in. These big clubs don't mess about. United are sat there going, well, let us pray. Let us pray that we scam top 4 and then we can buy people in the summer because we're incompetent. Let us pray. And like, the reality is, the transfer window's open now. We're nowhere near top 4. Our midfield is trash. And you're talking about the summer. So you know what you can do with your Tchouaméni story? You can ram it right up your arse because I'm not interested. I'm telling you because it's a news show. But I'm not interested in Tchouaméni in the summer. I'm interested in now. We need players now. If we were comfortable in 2nd place and we're not going to win the league, I get it. All right, let's just go through the motions, get to the summer and buy. I don't like it, but I get it. We're not in the top 4. We're not favourites for top 4. No one fancies us for top 4. We need a massive, massive boost to get into the top 4. And we're getting stories about the summer and Tchouaméni. And the reality is we won't. You know what? Let's have a story about Declan Rice tomorrow. Like, we won't get them. Because other people will want them and we'll be in the Europa League. And who's going to come to us? So it's a nonsense story. It's frustrating to be frustrated this long, says Lay. And good morning. Do you think that if this is mutiny is as serious as it seems that Ralph Rangnick may be put off to stay past the season in the consultancy role, says Samuel. Haven't heard this argument yet, says Greg. Why would any manager or players even want to come to this reality show of a football club right now, says Greg. Well, I suppose we sort of touched on it there. But yeah, if you've got every reason to believe United are interested in Tchouaméni this morning because David Ornstein's saying it, and I respect him. I think he's a very good journalist. And having spoken to David a few times, he's 100%, very credible and very dedicated to his job. So I've got no reason to think that he would be lying. But the thing that I don't like about this is it's about the summer. Zakaria, Kamara. There are players that you can go and get now. Get Tchouaméni in the summer. We need 2. But we need a midfielder in now. And I feel that United are already deflecting to the summer. And I don't know how a football club can run like that. We heard a story yesterday, I think it was Manchester Evening News, that the Glazers are taking £11 million out of the club in dividends. I mean, what's happened to our fan base? I don't know what happened. Like, the Super League happened and every football fan in the country and the world seemed to come together for the better good. United bought Varane and Sancho, and United fans just went, that's fine. Let's forget all the protests. It doesn't really matter anymore. It's fine. And then we've got the Glazers taking £11 million out. Solskjaer's been sacked, who a lot of people loved, even though they agreed with it. That was a failure, wasn't it? Ronaldo's not scoring goals. We're in 6th or 7th. Top 4's in jeopardy. The Glazers are taking £11 million out, and everyone's just sat there going, I don't know, I just feel like there's an apathy around the club at the moment. Maybe people have just become, sort of depressed. Because this is probably the biggest mess we've been in. We can argue what the worst positions we've been in, but I think we're in a really bad situation. League position's bad. 6 or 7 clubs are better than us in the league and deserve to be above us. Players are falling out. The club won't spend money but are taking dividends out. We don't know who the manager's going to be. I mean, I would argue we're in a worse position than we were under David Moyes right here, right now. And yet, the fan base just seems to be lethargic. I don't understand it. We're in a right bloody mess. And, 11 million in dividends going out. We could get Kamara for that. We could get Zakaria for that. So literally our owners are taking money out, but they're not spending money on a midfielder that we could get in January. And I'm telling you now, and I'll keep saying it, I'm bored of saying it myself, if United want to be in the race for top 4, they've got to buy a midfielder in January. If they want to massively risk it, don't buy anybody. And you know what they're going to do. Throw the whole lot of them out of the club and let the academy players come in through 2 or 3 down years. At least they will have some pride wearing the shirts as Kia. And if United fail to buy a CDM in January, consider top 4 gone. Consider Pogba, Van der Beek, Ronaldo, Cavani, Martial gone. Massive depletion in squad depth. And quality, Anu. And quality as well. I just want to say, there was a story last night, and it was from the, I think it was the Daily Star or something, and they were talking about Ronaldo considering his future. I'm not going to put Ronaldo considering his future in the title or anything here today because it's just total and utter nonsense. And I think if any United fan is discussing Ronaldo discussing his future, you're a prat. Like, we literally spoke about this with Romano on Tuesday or Monday. Tuesday it was, wasn't it? And I've spoken about it a lot. Cristiano Ronaldo never, ever decides his future halfway through a season. He's focused. This is why he's one of the greatest players of all time, the GOAT. Because he will look in the summer at the situation, but right here, right now, how you become a winner is you stay in the race. How many people have won races when it seemed impossible? You know, even that Verstappen in the Formula 1, he shouldn't have won it. He thought he'd lost it, but he hangs around and his chance comes. That's how Cristiano Ronaldo works. He's like a Formula 1 racer. He's like a sprinter who's losing the race, but he's not going to quit because you never know what might happen to win it right at the end. That's the mentality of Cristiano Ronaldo. That's why he's one of the greatest of all times. That's why people write him off and he keeps coming back. He will not be sat there in January going, I'm thinking of leaving Manchester United. He'll be very concerned about the situation, but he won't be thinking about it. Same thing happened at Juventus. Same thing happened when he was at United the first time. In fact, he did an interview before the European Cup final against Barcelona in Rome in 2009 and said, I'm here to stay. And then the deal happened after that because he focuses on the football, and then when he's not playing football, he'll look at what he's going to do. Now, I think Ronaldo will leave in the summer if we're in the Europa League, but he's not thinking about it now. Don't fall into the trap. The British press will do this. They'll start writing about Ronaldo leaving. You can speculate it, and I think he will go if we're in the Europa League, but he's not thinking about it, and he's not pushing for it, because that's just not how he works. So don't fall into the trap. There is a trap. Remember, a lot of our players have got friends in the media. They're getting information from them. It works the other way. You know that information I gave you about the dressing room? It's sort of backfired. I'm getting a lot of shit. Can we put a bit of shit on Ronaldo? Don't worry about it. We'll put a story about him wanting to leave. So just be very careful. And it works both ways. Depression is the right words. On paper, we have one of the best squads and we can't do anything. I'm only watching United because of United stands, says DK. Yeah, look, things need to change. I mean, look, just before I talk about Ralph, Haaland has been mentioned also by David Ornstein, so you can say that this is quite credible as well. He's saying that United are interested in Haaland, but they're not so sure that Haaland's interested in United. Well, you know, their end of the story. Of course, Manchester United are interested in Haaland. I've got no doubt between now and Haaland signing for Real Madrid in the summer, we will do many a video where we're in for Haaland. We're going to put an offer in for Haaland. We want Haaland. We're in the transfer race for Haaland. I predicted this last summer. I said it a few months ago. That will happen, but he won't come to Manchester United because why would he be interested in coming to Manchester United? If I was any top-level striker, your whole career is your stats on scoring goals to games ratio. Any striker will look at Manchester United and Cristiano Ronaldo and go, he ain't scoring goals. He's not scoring goals. So I don't think a striker's coming to Manchester United of Haaland's quality. He'd be foolish, absolutely foolish to do it. So that's on Haaland. That's from David Ornstein. Interest from Manchester United, but they don't think the interest is reciprocated. So there you go. Let's talk about Rangnick's job fear then. So look, I will read you these quotes because it's easier to do this. So Ralph Rangnick fears dressing room unrest at Manchester United could derail their bid to finish in the Premier League's top 4 this season. Well, Ralph Rangnick's right. That's from Rob Dawson, ESPN. Luke Shaw's interview did not come as a huge surprise, and there are concerns that if issues are not fixed, hopes of securing Champions League football next season will fade away. Well, that's very much the truth. And sources said that fringe players who became frustrated at a lack of game time under Solskjaer believed they were getting a clean slate under Rangnick, but again, feel that has not happened. Only Anthony Martial remains confident of securing a transfer during the window. Players believe individual video sessions have led to disjointed displays because they are unsure about where teammates are supposed to be. Quite in depth here. And also, Michael Carrick's departure is still being keenly felt within the squad, leading to a disconnect between players and management. That's all from Rob Dawson, who is ESPN journalist. You've then got the Telegraph, James Ducker, saying that sources at Manchester United felt too much power was given to Moyes' replacement Van Gaal, with the club still fixated by that point on the manager calling the shots, and they paid the price for several summers of failed recruitment. That doesn't really fit in with what I'd heard. Also, there was something from Andy Mitten that I wanted to read about. Oh yeah, that was it. Manchester United, Ralph Rangnick is struggling to get his coaches integrated with the players, and he's missing Carrick and McKenna. Now, I just don't get this. Unfortunately, this is my last chat as a member, as I'm struggling, but just wanted to say keep up the good work, says Dion. Thank you very much, Dion. I just wanted to say as well that this is massively confusing to me. What we seem to have gathered, and remember we've got Ralph Rangnick's press conference coming up at 1:30. We'll be live straight after for that. I think what we can basically take as almost fact is that, based on the leaks this week and what we're now getting, is that the dressing room is broken, divided. There is a lack of trust between Rangnick and the players, and a lot of this seems to be being pinned on the fact that Carrick and McKenna left, and the players can't get on with Rangnick's coaches, and Rangnick's been hindered by the departure of Carrick and McKenna. Now you can interpret that how you want, but Ralph Rangnick is basically concerned that he's only here till May. He's only been here 6 weeks, and already they're losing games and putting in shockingly bad performances like Norwich, Newcastle and Wolves, and he's not going to have enough time to sort this all out. Now my feeling on this is that none of it makes any sense. Apart from the fact it makes total sense when you are experienced in the way the Manchester United board run this football club. When you sack a manager, and we know who got sacked, when Ollie got sacked, Carrick, McKenna and Phelan should have gone. And Darren Fletcher shouldn't have been anywhere near the training ground. He should have gone to his role as a technical director, because that's an office-based job. It's an overseeing role with Murta. What actually happened is we sacked Ollie, we kept McKenna, we kept Carrick, we kept Phelan, and Fletcher came down to train the players on the pitch. So the players are losing games like 5-0 to Liverpool. They're getting stuffed by Watford. The manager gets sacked, but the next day the same coaches are coaching them. Rangnick comes in, and the idea is Rangnick just replaces Ollie, but we still have the same coaches. Well, that's not change, is it? That is not change. You know, go back to a Formula One analogy again, right? You're driving round, you're Lewis Hamilton or whoever's your favourite racer, right? You're in fourth place, and old Arsenal and Spurs are fifth and sixth, but they're catching up on you, and you're like, I'm losing speed here. I need 4 new tyres. I've got no grip. I can't go full pelt, and I think there's something wrong with the ignition. I'm not getting the full speed. Come into the pits. You come into the pits and you go, great. They've just gone past me, but I will catch them up because I'm going to have my tyres on and my engine on, and I know I'm quicker than them. You come out the pitch, you drive off, and you go, hold on a minute. You've only changed. The ignition's sorted, but the tyres aren't. Yeah, no, we're only changing the ignition. So what? So I can go quick, but I can't control the car because the tyres are bald. Yeah, Mike Phelan. But the reality, and also Darren Fletcher. But they wanted to keep Carrick and McKenna as well. Do you see what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me. You've got a problem with your car. You need 4 new tyres and an ignition fix. They only fix the ignition and send you out with the same tyres. Like, that's never going to work. But I'm reading people today. I'm reading journalists who are close to the club, and they've obviously been briefed, because they're like, well, you can understand why Rangnick's failing because he lost Carrick and McKenna and he's having to use his own coaches. What? New manager comes in with new coaches. Oh God, poor bloke. And nurses think they've got it hard. I mean, the reality is, has Conte gone into Spurs and been given Nuno's coaches? This doesn't happen. When you sack a manager, their coaches go and a new manager comes in. But what's actually happened is the old hooks, they're on Ralph. Put them on. Put the strings in. You're a Man United manager now. We pull the strings. Rangnick has gone and done what Mourinho did. He's gone and done what Ollie did. They're so desperate to get the Man United job. They're so in awe of the Man United job. They're not coming in like a Conte or a Pep or a Klopp would. They're not coming in and saying, I'm only signing that contract if I'm in charge. They're coming in and saying, I'll take the job with Carrick and McKenna and Fletcher and Fee. I'll take it. I'll take it. And this is why we're failing. Jobs for the boys, internal candidates, nothing changes. I feel for Ollie. I mean, he deserved the sack, but I feel for Ollie because he was hung out to dry as an individual. Can I remind you of something from Ollie's mouth? I don't train the players. So we sack a manager. Ollie was there to put an arm around people and say, go out there, passion, trust, desire. That's what was his job. He wasn't on the training ground coaching players. The people on the training ground coaching the players was Carrick, McKenna, and we were getting beat 4-1 by Watford, 5-0 by Liverpool. And we're now being told the reason Rangnick's failing is because Carrick and McKenna left and he needed them. And I'm like, do they take us for idiots? You're telling me we sacked Ollie to bring Ralph Rangnick in to let Carrick and McKenna keep coaching the team. And now they've left, that's why we're struggling. Look, I know we played bad against Wolves and we lost 1-0. But we didn't get beat 4-1 by Watford. Like, am I missing something? Like, we lost on Monday because we don't have Carrick and McKenna. Do you suffer from short-term memory loss? Can't remember. You know, the reality is, Rangnick should be allowed to bring his own coaches in, and if the players don't like it, swivel on it. Like, what's going on? And the trouble with Man United is it's such a propaganda spin merchant place that credible journalists can come out today and say, the problem is Rangnick really thought he was going to get McKenna and Carrick and they left. That's not a new manager. That's just somebody coming in to sit in the manager's office and do the press conference. If we're going to carry on with the same coaches, the same problems are going to be there. Man United need a hard reset. They're obsessed with DNA. They're obsessed with you used to play the club. They're obsessed with, oh, you've got some Premier League medals from over a decade ago. A new manager must be allowed to come in and manage with their own people. And if the players don't like it, F off. Simple as that. But Man United are obsessed with maintaining the status quo. The jobs for the boys. You can have the job, but you've got to work with the people we've already got. They did it to Mourinho. Mourinho had Rui Faria as assistant manager. He leaves. What does he get as a replacement? Carrick and McKenna. We believe in them. Yeah, I just... My problem with Man United is they keep making the same mistakes again and again and again and again. And people say, you know, people agree with me about Fletcher, but some people think I'm a bit harsh. Probably am a little bit harsh on Darren Fletcher because he could become brilliant, and I hope he does. But to me, I just see another Michael Carrick, where he's being forced on another manager. We want to nurture him. And I don't know any other club that does this. They certainly don't do it publicly. Does Jurgen Klopp get given some ex-Liverpool player from 10 years ago and told to use him as an assistant coach? No, he's allowed to manage. And this is where United go wrong. Aram says, sorry if I missed it, but what do you make of story Rangnick wanted to keep coaches like Carrick, etc.? Maybe explains why Fletcher is there now. Shambles. Well, look, the fact that Rangnick wanted to keep them there does to me suggest that he took the job knowing that they would be there and that therefore he's not the right choice. More and more this is becoming an interim role, and I never wanted an interim role. If you remember when we were talking about this after losing to Liverpool and there was rumours of another interim coach, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all because if you have an interim coach and they're definitely an interim coach and they're going to leave in May, then what are you doing for 6 months? All you can do is fuck it up, and that's basically what we're doing. Look, all you need to do is compare us to Spurs. Spurs sacked their manager a little bit before us. They brought in a full-time manager. He's got 6 months of the season to get to know the players, and then he'll have a big summer for next year. But already, Spurs are benefiting from that full-time manager, long-term vision. The players are different. and they're above us in the league, and they're playing better than us. I mean, there's always, you can always find an example. You could go back to what happened with Chelsea and Tuchel. Again, he was brought in the January as a full-time manager, not an interim coach. So you've got the Chelsea example that worked very well, and you've got the Spurs example that's working well. I mean, look, I'm not saying Spurs are going to win anything, but they're still in a much better position than they were. What did Spurs and Chelsea do? They sacked a manager, they brought a new manager in, they gave him a full-time job, and they gave him authority to do what he wants to do. Compare that to what United have done. Sacked a manager, tried to keep all his coaching staff, and bring an interim in for a few months. I mean, you know what it is? Again, another analogy for you. Spurs and Man United are running down a hill. They both trip up, and they both break their leg badly. Spurs call an ambulance, get that leg to hospital very quickly, get it operated on, get it in a cast, and recover. United don't call an ambulance. They put a plaster on it and say, hobble on. What's going to happen? We're hobbling along. Spurs are fixed. They're going to run past us. This is basic analogies, but we're talking about one of the biggest football clubs, brands, obviously they love that word, in the world. What have we basically done? We've sacked Ollie, whose long-term, he was meant to be there for long-term, I'll admit that, but his long-term vision was flawed. We've sacked Ollie, and we put a plaster on a wound and said, Rangnick's, I don't know what word to use for Rangnick, but Rangnick's naive. I think his ego has got over his head here, because you could see this coming a mile off. If you take a job as a manager, but you've got to keep all the same coaches and you're only there for a few months, and you don't see problems with players and dressing room unrest coming, and inability to get results coming, well, you've not been watching the Premier League for very long. I just think what's happened is he's been so in awe of the Man United job, he's basically jumped into it and not thought it through, because this is a mess. And I don't sympathise with the players, because the players are wrong what they've done this week, some of them. But put yourself in the shoes of some of those players, right? You start the season, there's talk of a title race, right? You get to September and you realise that's not going to happen. You're being beaten by Watford, stuffed by Leicester, stuffed by Liverpool, played off the park by Man City, humiliated. We need a change. They take ages to do the change, and then when they do the change, they keep the same coaches, but they bring another manager in who's totally different to the previous manager. I mean, this is the real issue. They sack the manager, they keep the same coaches, or want to keep the same coaches, but they then bring a manager in as an interim who doesn't really bring any of his own coaches in, but has a completely different ethos on the managers that you've had for the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. It's just bad. Ultimately, it's not Rangnick's fault. It's not the players' fault. It's not even the coach's fault. It's Murta and the board. What are they thinking? It's fuzzy thinking. It doesn't make any sense. Ralph Rangnick is so different to anything this club's done in a decade, and yet you bring him in as an interim and tell him to work with coaches who've been playing pragmatic, slow football for the last 3 years. And you wonder why the players are confused. They've got coaches that for 3 years have been telling them to pass it sideways, pass it backwards, keep the shape, deep line. And now you've got a manager saying, don't pass it backwards, pass it forwards, high line, high intensity. You can see why the players are confused. You've got Mike Phelan doesn't take the training, but you've got these coaches who've been telling us one thing, then the other, and it's you know what? When you break it down, you can see exactly why this problem has arisen. Now, the players should not be leaking information. I'm totally against that. But you can see why this problem has arose. Because Rangnick is so different to Ollie in ability, style of play, whatever. It'd be like, it'd be like? Pep Guardiola. It'd be like getting Pep Guardiola to come to Manchester United, but you can't have any of your coaches. You've got to work with Phelan and Fletcher and everyone else. Imagine how confusing that would be for the players. And for the fans and everybody else. They've basically done what they always do, United. Instead of performing major surgery, they put a plaster on an open wound, and now it's gushing. Has our club learnt nothing? Did club try to show players that club is on their side by leaking Ten Hag news? Is our club on players' side already? Well, they probably are, Sav. This club has shown absolutely nothing. absolutely nothing. It's learned absolutely nothing over the last few years, and it still prioritises players. Look, I like Paul Pogba. Do you agree that this football club has a contract with £400,000 a week for 4 years waiting in front of Paul Pogba if he wants to sign it? Do you agree with that? Does he deserve that? Is that not evidence of player power at Manchester United? That there is a contract for 400k on the table for Paul Pogba whenever he wants to sign it, and he's just ignoring it. Is that not player power? Come on. Andy Mitten saying the coach is having trouble acclimatising to the northern weather. Come on, I mean, that's just stupid, Nicholas. I mean, if that's true, it's stupid. Mark, Ralph deserves a bit of time. His United results to date are good, but if he plays the same garbage v Villa in the league, then he's done. Nick, I do agree, though. I think that there are players, obviously Donny van der Beek, Eric Bailly ring to mind, that really should be getting some game time. Hi, Mark. If I use Manscaped, would I look as good as you? Don't use it on your face, James. Mark, thoughts on... Mark, I don't have any interest in somebody who says they wish I was dead, so I certainly won't watch their videos. Mark, hate to say this, but maybe Rangnick isn't all that. Why does he only feel confident enough to manage us with the old coaches? Early days, but makes me doubt him. Pep, Klopp wouldn't take the job. Andrew, look, I am not Rangnick out. I'm 100% back Ralph Rangnick. It's just too early, and you know me, I don't really go early on a manager. Am I disappointed in Rangnick? Yeah, I'm disappointed in what he's signed. Like, I'm disappointed that he hasn't done his homework. I'm disappointed that he hasn't seen this issue. Like, we know these players. A lot of these players we don't trust. We want to trust them, but they let us down. We know they're prima donnas. We know they've got overinflated egos. We know they leak to the press. I don't know what Rangnick thought he was walking into. The only contract Rangnick should have signed with Manchester United was one that gave him total control and the ability to bring all the coaches he wanted to bring in. And maybe he shouldn't have taken the job. If he couldn't get the coaches he wanted, maybe he shouldn't have taken the job. I think he arrogantly thought he could walk in on his own, teach coach. I mean, I remember saying this a month ago. Like, the reason he needs his own coaches is it's hard enough, almost impossible, hard enough to turn those players around into good footballers without also having to turn the board around, teach Murta how to be a director of football, teach Fletcher how to be a technical director, teach the coaches how to coach, and teach the players. It was mission impossible. And I think he's just taken too much on and he's not thought it through. Mario says, you're asking for a new game yesterday on your Twitch channel. Please check out Knockout City. It's quite funny. I'll write it down. Knockout City. So, yeah, I think that in relation to Rangnick and Manchester United, it really is a difficult situation. Somebody just told me to check another tweet. It's a really difficult situation for him. I don't think it's a situation that's easily going to be solved. I think we are hurtling towards a huge week in relation to top four. The Villa game I'm looking forward to on Monday night in the Cup, of course. I am looking forward to that. But after that, you've got Villa in the league away. You've got Brentford in the league away. And then we've got West Ham at home. Those 9 points, one of which is a game in hand, are absolutely huge. And the angle I would go with that probably seems to have been ignored a little bit this week because of all the leaks is that is a massive 3 games in 7 days. And our midfield's shit. So why are we not buying a midfielder? We're not going to, are we? And that terrifies me. What's our silver lining as fans, says Lay. I don't know, you know. I mean, I'd love to give you some positivity because I would like to have some positivity myself. Look, I don't think we're going to get top 4. I said it on Sunday night before we lost to Wolves. I don't think we're getting top 4 because I really hope we do. And if people come back at me when we do and go, haha, you were wrong, great. I'm basing it on who deserves top 4. And from August to now, you're a liar if you say we deserve top 4. We don't. We could get it, but I think the story's already written in mid-January, and I don't think we're going to get top 4. The silver lining would be if we went out and bought a midfielder of quality to improve our options in the midfield, and that would make me feel a little bit more optimistic. It would make me feel like the club isn't massively risking top four. And look, Ronaldo is not wanting to leave United at the moment, but I think he will in the summer if we're in the Europa League. So there's your warning. There is just too much player power. These players are playing for Man United and should be proud to put that shirt on, says Mags. Hi Mark, love your content. Hope you're doing well. Love from Wellington. Jordan, thank you very much. In New Zealand. Aram, Mark, any update on who the players leaking all this are? You mentioned names yesterday and two you could not mention. Will they ever be outed, says Aram? I don't think they will. I don't think they will get outed, really, because I think that the outlets that are giving the information, getting the information, won't want to out them. So it's very difficult. And you end up in a situation like me where, look, I'm happy to say the three players I know who are not doing it, and I know a few more as well, but really people want to know who is doing it. And you've got people leaking information, but you've also got people who are unhappy who are not leaking information. So there are players that are very unhappy and they're moaning and they don't like how this player's being treated and that, but they're not leaking information, they're just not happy. Basically, if you pick any player and decide that they're leaking information, right? Imagine if you think about the United stand, right? Droughty's the leak, unfortunately, and he's leaking to the press. Goldbridge is furious. He's absolutely furious. He can't stand the fact that Beth gets to interview Romano and this, that, imagine if that was the case, which it's not because I arranged for Beth to interview Romano. But imagine that was the case. I'm not leaking anything, but I'm not happy. Droughty's leaking it, that I'm unhappy. So that's happening with United as well. There are players that aren't leaking information, but they're still disruptive in the dressing room. So it's just all a big mess. Do you think that Maguire will lose the captaincy after his childish behaviour? No. I think he's too powerful in that football club, Harry is. Again, he's another one who's got the ear of the board. He's another one who can go behind the manager's back. So they won't take the captaincy of him. I actually, from what I know, welcome to Members Club, Ashley. From what I know, Ralph Rangnick probably doesn't even have the power that Harry Maguire's got within Manchester United, and he won't have the power to strip him of the captaincy. So it's not a decision he can make. James, was it Rangnick saying that Donny is not suited for the Premier League yet? He's been given a run of games to even show if he's good enough? Well, that's a great point, James. How can you give up on a manager after 4 weeks? The mentality of our players is a disgrace, says Sean Turner. I wouldn't mind if they could actually play football. Well, the amazing thing for me, Sean, is what is it they want? So they're not happy with Rangnick's training style, but their previous manager's training style was shit. So what is it you want? Do they want Ollie back? I don't know. It's like they're not Man United players. It's like they're not football players. It's like they value mates more than trophies. Somebody was on about this yesterday. If you look at the reaction of our players sometimes when we win a game or we lose a game, sometimes you can't tell whether we've won or lost. Whereas some players, when we win a game, it means so much. That's a winning mentality. That's a love for the game. I think some of these players are more focused on themselves, their brand, their bank balance. I don't think Paul Ince said it a few weeks ago, didn't he? How many of these players are Man United players? And what we mean by Man United players is the Cantonars, the Keanes, the Gary Nevilles, the Ronaldos, the Rooneys, who, look, not always, but certainly for a vast majority of their career, they got it. It meant something. I don't think these players, well, they're not Man United players because they don't play with any consistency. I don't understand the advisor role Ralph is keeping on. It's pointless keeping Fletcher and Murta around with Ralph, to be honest, says Keith. Ten Hag seems like a coach that the boards can control that will keep fans happy in the short term. I agree, Mark. Watched my video on that yesterday. And problem with Rangnick currently is it seems everyone has accepted that he's just an interim and hence he cannot impose himself on or take seriously. We need authority at the football club. You know what, mate? You've nailed it. You've absolutely nailed it, Ami. The problem with Rangnick at the moment is, and this is where the club went wrong. This is why I didn't want an interim coach, because this was always going to happen. And as I said, look at what Spurs did with Conte. From day one, he's in charge and he's here for years. From day one, Rangnick's an interim and we're going to look at for a new manager in the summer. This is like when you used to go to school and you come into school and your teacher's off sick for a week and they get some interim in. You don't behave. You don't work as hard. It's a bit of a piss take. That's basically what the players are doing. They're acting like silly little children, not focused because they don't respect the manager. Now, the reason I got excited about Rangnick as an interim is because we heard that he's going to be here for 3 years. And I thought, well, he'll come in, he'll spend 6 months fixing the club at the bottom, and then he'll move up and fix it from everywhere else. I thought he was going to be Ralf Rangnick, what he did at Leipzig, what he did at other clubs where he's allowed to build the club in his vision. Unfortunately, that's not what's happened. He hasn't got much power, and he really is just a consultant. And well, a consultant's somebody you can ignore. So the players are ignoring him. The exciting thing about Rangnick at the start was they're gonna use him. They're gonna respect the fact that he knows more than anybody else, and they're gonna let him build that club from top to bottom for the next 3 years. And he will appoint the manager. But this is not obviously happening. We've been conned again. The owners, the ex-players, underperforming players, ignorant fans, like the Ronaldo blamers. I do not see Man United back at the top unless change at the top happens, says Marcellino. Well, look, a lot of people always say, how long is it going to take for Man United to win a title? I don't know whether you've ever done this before, but I'm going to check Lucas' tweet now, Idek. But if you've got a piece of, I'm sure everyone knows what Lego is. So there's a Lego Old Trafford set, right? It's amazing, and you can't build it in 5 minutes. It will take you, I don't know, if you spent 10 hours a day, it'd probably take you a couple of days to build it, right? And you love it, and it's amazing. Well, that's what Sir Alex Ferguson did. Instead of 2 days, it was nearly 3 decades, rebuilding that football club. And when he finished it, it was amazing. Now, when you pick that up and smash it on the floor, you can't rebuild it any quicker than it took before, because it's got all these pieces and all these instructions. So when people say, how far away do you think Man United are from winning a title? What did I say a few minutes ago? I'd argue we're in the worst position now than we were when Moyes was in charge. We're certainly in one of the worst positions we've been since Sir Alex Ferguson took over. Therefore, if we're in one of the worst positions we've been in since Sir Alex Ferguson took over, that thing we built, it's on the floor. It's in pieces. So it's going to take a long time to fix this. That's if we use the right instructions. Knowing the Glazers, they'll go and get it in bloody Brazilian or something and no one can speak it. So this is not a quick fix. It needs fixing from the ground up, and it needs building properly. And there's no indication that United want to do that. Will the new manager be able to bring in their own coaching staff? I don't think they will, Sean. I think you're making a great point. I think the next manager will still have to work with the coaches that are there now. What's worse, players leaking or fans sitting on their hands and not speaking out, says Mark. Hi Mark, now Ollie's gone and Rangnick's exposed players and midfield problems. How can we fix our midfield issues? Buy somebody, Chris. A lot of these players should watch the Class of 92 documentary and learn what it means to play for the badge, says John. Mark from Oz says, I couldn't care less if a player who is earning millions is unhappy. They have to train in the dark, or a new manager wants more from them. Those fans have been unhappy with the club for the past 10 years and we still don't get what we want, says Mark. And a big red flag for me is that Ralph cuts players for showing emotion and frustration with the decisions being made, says Jake. Well, you know what? Just going back to what Mark from Oz said there. The amazing thing is when you get drawn into these player arguments, because there are still some people out there that stick up for the players. Name me a player that's been here witnessing this crap from day one of David Moyes. There's only one, two, Phil Jones and David De Gea. So all these players who think they know better than us, and all these players who think they're being hard done by, and all these players moaning and snaking and this, that and the other, they haven't even experienced what we've experienced as fans, because they weren't here 9 years ago. So I couldn't really give a toss about the players, to be honest with you. If they're not happy, put a transfer request in. You'll be gone in 5 years. Most of you will be gone, and the club will still remain. So players to me should always be pawns in a game of chess. You're not the king, you're not the queen, you're not the bishop, you're pawns. You earn a lot of money, but you are pawns in a game of chess. Know your place, respect your position within a team. You're there to be told what to do, and if you don't do it, you don't play. You're not there to be bitching and leaking and going behind the manager's back and speaking to the board. And that's where the club's gone wrong. Anyway, let's have a quick look at this tweet that people want me to look at. So, this is from Samuel Lucas, and it's actually quite a good point that's not really been discussed before. He says, there is a feeling at United that players running down their contracts is contributing... Let me have a drink of water here. Samuel. is contributing to the negativity around the club. It would be typical of them to counter that with the positive of renewals when this is the year to clear the decks. Finalising targets for the summer with incoming still unlikely this month. Club also expect to be more active selling players this year. I mean, that does make a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense because Pogba is running his contract down and he's a very big player within the club and the dressing room. Jesse Lingard running his contract down. He's been there since he was a kid, so he's a very big influence on the training ground. It is a very, very accurate assessment of a problem. I don't know whether it's pushing. I mean, you've got to be very careful again. I said it about the Ronaldo story. Ronaldo doesn't and isn't looking to leave United. He'll look at it in the summer. Yet we've got a story about Ronaldo looking to leave. It's bullshit. They're trying to push the blame onto Ronaldo for the dressing room unrest. Pogba's not even been here for 6 weeks. He's only just started training again, and we're getting a story about Pogba's causing the unrest. Well, he's not been playing with the team. If players are listening to Pogba, they're bloody idiots. He's hardly played all season. Pogba could be a real help to us over the next few months. So I'd be a bit wary of that because it feels to me like it's trying to force the blame onto Pogba again. Well, he's not been here. He's not been playing, and his contract situation is on the board. I think in the case of Lingard, he is training with the team. He is an influential player within the team. He probably isn't very happy either. I said this a couple of weeks ago. Personally, I'd do everything I can to get rid of Pogba and Lingard in this January transfer window. The problem is, you can't. If I'm in charge, if I'm director of football at Man United, I can't say to Lingard, get out of my club. You need to play football. We don't want to play you. We don't want to give you a contract. Go. He will go, you know what, I'm not. You've treated me like shit. I'm running my contract down. I'll see you at training on Monday. So you've got to do something extreme like say, you won't be in training on Monday. You can go and train with the under-18s. But then that causes a problem anyway. So United have created this problem. It's not ideal to be trying to turn a corner and rebuild when you've got players that are not committed because they're looking at other things. The United we grew up with, and look, if they renew the contracts of Jesse Lingard and Paul Pogba, I think that's a step backwards because I don't think either player really suits what we're trying to do long term. Pogba doesn't really want to be here. He'll only sign a contract if nothing else is offered to him better, which it will be. And Lingard wants to be here, but ultimately it's just not good enough. The United we grew up with and loved hasn't been the same since 2013. Our DNA is dead. We need to move with the times instead of constantly trying to replicate the Fergie days, says Mark. We need a big reset, Mark. Simple as that. We need to stop looking at the past and look at the future. And the great thing is Sir Alex Ferguson did that when he came down from Aberdeen. But the club are lost in the past. That's down. Sean says that's down to the board again. Not making big decisions. Not selling Jesse in the summer. It's like the players run the club. It's a joke. And I think that is the most succinct and to the point comment we've had today from Sean. It is down to the board. The board are always responsible because they own the club. They run the club. And you can moan about players, you can moan about managers, you can moan about coaches, you can moan about recruitment, but the reality is it all comes from the board. The board are not good enough, and this is where Richard Arnold has got to move quickly. We need a midfielder in January. It's not even a nice to have. It's not even a we would like to. We need one. 100%. Not even a smithing, whatever the word is, a slither. Snakes again. Of doubt in my mind. We need a midfielder. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. I'm going to go and suck on a Strepsil, which is a cough sweet, nothing more sinister than that. And we've got Ralph Rangnick's press conference at 1:30, so we'll be live just before 2 o'clock with his thoughts. Bit of a prediction on his press conference. I think a lot of people are getting very excited about it. He will be asked about the unrest, but he will say things like, no, everything's fine, because he can't say anything else. The question I would like the most asked is this is the question I would love to get asked to Ralph Rangnick today. Across the season so far, Ralph, it would be fair to say that the midfield is not winning battles. In fact, it would be fair to say that the midfield is losing or not dominating in the midfield in most of its games. It's clearly the weak spot because you're not creating chances for your forwards. Why are you not looking to buy a midfielder in January? And just put him on the spot. That's what I would do. JK, thanks for the chat. Remember Manscaped. Trim your balls to make your yard look bigger. Show something some of these United players haven't got. 20% off and free worldwide shipping. The link's in the video description. Get yours today. Also the Weed Whacker if you want to check out the nose one. I'll speak to you a little bit later. Links in the description for Manscaped. I'll see you on the press conference reaction at around 2 p.m. Speak to you in a bit.